let's talk about XLR cable. Now, I did a whole video on like Blue Jeans LC1, which you can check out here. But then after that, I started looking at like, what about XLR cable? And then I started realizing like there's XLR cable for different uses, right? Like we have mic, we have line, and we have digital. And should we be using the same cable for all three? Maybe we should be using the cable for what our uses are. So I started thinking about it. I've always used quad mic cable because I've always liked it for microphones. The reason I've liked it for microphones is because it rejects noise very, very well. I've always used it for mics, and it has the construction of the cable, because you have a balanced connection on one end, it rejects like extra noise. Well, the way that the cable and the two wires, the quad that are kind of all tied together, is that they like basically the cable is for a balanced connection, basically designed to reject noise in the way that it crosses past at 90-degree angles. So, but I mean, in a microphone situation, that makes a lot of sense, because when you hook up a microphone to a microphone preamp, I mean, that microphone preamp, you're giving lots of gain, like 30, 40, 50, 60 dB of gain to the cable and everything that cable's connected to the microphone. So, and you can be in a lot of noisy environments, right? Like, people say, well, stage, you don't know where you're going to be. Sure, for a live situation. But what about even here at home? I've got like these LED lights. I've got computer monitors. I've got computers. I've got lots of weird stuff. We have cell phones. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for a microphone cable. Even this microphone, I use it's a Canary or Canary quad mic cable. And so I tried Canary on my XLR connections. But then after that, I thought, well, wait a second. I'm pushing more than just like microphone signal from my DAC to my amp, right? Or whatever. So to my DAC to my headphone amp, or to my DAC to my speaker amp. So I'm like, or my DAC to my preamp. So I'm like, what can I do? Like, maybe I just need a standard balance connection, right? Like, that would make more sense. So I actually switched to this cable, the Mogami, and this is a Mogami standard 3-conductor 2549, right? Standard mic cable. Or standard, I mean, you could use it for mic or line, but and you could use it for either. But if you're using it for like really long runs or whatever, I would probably use something else. Or if you're in a very noisy environment, you might want to use the quad mic cable. But for line stuff, I don't know if I would ever use a quad mic cable for line level stuff. So I would probably just use a regular like 3-conductor wire for that. But then when I started getting into the hollow audio, sorry, hit my mic, and I have the hollow audio video all posted up here, and I started thinking about my AES connection. Like, if I'm going to have the best of the best, like streamer, and have this AES connection to my DAC, then I'm going to hook up like something, like I need some good AES cable. But when you look at AES cable and you look at what's out there, I mean, it is really expensive. It can get very expensive. There are cables that are out there that are $2,000, $3,000 for like 1 meter, 2 meters. I was pretty unbelievable. I was pretty shocked. And they use silver, and they're like, because silver has a higher, silver does have slightly higher conductivity than copper. And it's like, but, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like I can't spend this amount of money on a cable. There has to be something like some other standard cable, like people that make cable like all over. And I love Mogami cable. Every Mogami cable I've ever used been great. So I started looking at, like, I had a good, Blue Jeans made the LC1. Like, interconnect like for unbalanced cables. Like, okay, well, what do they make for digital cables? I mean, XLR cables. And what I found was the interesting thing. They don't differentiate their cables between analog and digital as far as the XLR. And the reason why is because they use AES cables for digital and analog. I mean, AES is 110, that is, that's their impedance is 110. So I'm like, well, that makes sense. 110 ohm cable for audio. I mean, we're using 75 ohm, cable for unbalanced connection. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's still, like a balanced connection. There's slight construction differences, but I'm like, okay, it's meant to reject noise. And a digital signal is usually, like 1 volt or so, or 0.8. I can't remember how many volts. Like, okay. And it's meant to, but it's supposed to maintain all these like high frequencies because the digital, signal is on a very, needs a lot of bandwidth. So I'm like, well, this could work well for audio. And they use Belden 1800F, which is very similar. And I have to look up here to all my cable numbers. But it's very similar to the Mogami W3080. Okay. 3080, Belden 1800F. They also, you can get Blue Jeans cable in the Canary DA02, which is very similar to all those. Like all of them are very close to the same thing. Like the Gotham quad mic cables similar to the Canary, which is similar to the Mogami quad mic. There might be some slight differences between them. You might can find some slight sound differences between them, or like one or the other. They do actually make the Canary L4E6S, which is a quad cable for XLR. But like I said, I probably would only use quad for mic cable. Definitely not for AES situation. So, in my research and trying to find a cable, I found Mogami makes another cable that is specifically designed for long run AES. And I thought, okay, long run, that means it's going to have, better specs like all around, right? And it did. It's a bigger gauge wire, it's more copper, and it has better impedance specs. And I was like, oh, this could be a real winner of a cable. And it wasn't that much more like per foot. And it's this cable here, right? This big, thick monster. And I'll show you the difference down here. And this is Mogami W3173. And if you look, this is a standard, 2549, right? 3 conductor. And this is the Mogami, and you can tell how much bigger it is and how much thicker it is. And when I hooked it up to my system, compared to the Mogami, because when I went from the quad, mic cable, when I went to the quad mic cable and I'm trying to switch my camera to the quad, to the regular like 2549, there was a difference in sound quality. Like I did hear better top end, like better like details. It just sounded a lot cleaner. When I went to this cable, right, the W3173, it made an even bigger difference. And actually, I had it at first hooked up between my DAC to my preamp, okay, and then my preamp to my amp, and it made like a pretty, it was like, okay, this is a slight jump in sound quality. But then when I swapped the cables, so basically think about this. I had this going from my preamp, my passive preamp, to my amp, all right? And I had the bigger cable going from my DAC to my preamp. Now, my DAC to my preamp is carrying 4 volts. So you would think this big cable's carrying 4 volts of audio. And then that's being attenuated with my passive attenuator and going through the 2549 to my amp. I was like, well, wait a second. Let me swap them. Meaning now I'm going to put this cable, the 2549, going from my DAC to my preamp, carrying 4 volts, because really it's like 4 volts. It's like there's no real interference. This is a, short 3-foot cable. It can, it doesn't need a lot, right? But then when I attenuate, like I'm going to drop the voltage. Like it's going to now be lower going to my amp. So what if I then put the better cable on that? And when I did that, that was when there was a huge jump in sound quality. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is even better. So now I'm thinking if I get both, that'll probably be it for what I need. This is now my recommendation for line level cable or for AES. Mogami 3173. You can buy it from Redco Audio, and I'll put a link in the description. As of today, it's $1.32 per foot. You can't buy it at Marketech. They don't sell it. They sell the other Mogami AES cable, and they sell the Belden 1800F, but they don't sell this cable at $1.32 per foot. Matter of fact, I even purchased, because I had to try myself, right? Like I found this company in Canada that actually had this cable, and they would cryogenically treat it and then send it to you. So it was cryo treated, and I was like, I've got to give this a try. So I did an A/B comparison. I did a subjective A/B comparison, and I'm one of those guys that I'm kind of half on the fence about cryo treated or not cryo treated. I didn't find there was much advantage in the cryo treated. A lot of people are going to find that surprising to think that I do a lot of subjective listening, but yet I didn't find a lot of advantages over the cryo treated cable. Tried both. There was not much difference. So I think that you could probably save your money and get, non-cryo treated cables probably just fine. I have heard some cryo treated tubes, but that may be different, right? Like I'm not really sure about that. But I will say this, because you can't have two tubes that are different, and you never know the use of one over the other. So yeah, there's a lot of weird things going on with cryo stuff. But these are 2 brand new cables that I've tried. I tried them both and didn't really have that much difference between either of them. So I do like the AES cable, and you can be sure that, man, it's gonna work for 300 meters. That you can use it for digital audio, and if you can use it for that long, then it's probably spec'd well for analog audio. Even for lower voltages and stuff like that. So yeah, Mogami W3173. It's very easy to work with. I highly recommend it. The only thing is a little bit thicker, but it still will work with these just barely with these Neutrik connectors. So yeah, so there you go. XLR cable recommendation there. That is the best bang for your buck XLR cable that I could say, works really, really well. Because really, if you say, well, how much is the regular Mogami cable? And I will tell you how much it is. If this is $1.32 per foot cable, the bulk cable for a regular balanced Mogami 2549 is 90 cents per foot from redco.com today. So, and I say today because you never know when people are going to change their prices, but as of this recording of this video, that is the price. And so, yeah, it's not that much more per foot. I have to do, the math, but yeah, it's 40, what is that? 30, 40 cents per foot, more. something like that. So yeah, 42 cents per foot more. That still may be a little bit much because you're considering like 90 cents. So it's almost like double if you consider it that way. So if you need a lot of it, this still is not, bad, not terrible cable. Still highly recommend it. And if you're going to be carrying, especially if you're going to be carrying like from your DAC to your, to your system or something like that, this still works really, really well. But if you're carrying something else, like if you got a passive preamp, especially something like this, but definitely I'm going to be buying more and be making more of this cable, and hopefully you guys too. So if you have another cable recommendation, or if you've tried it, if you've tried the W3173, please let me know in the comments and the descriptions. I'd love to hear from you guys. So please like and subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we'll catch you guys later.